So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Sean, for speaking. It's great to have you back at another event. So, Sean Stevens launched into the world of the web in 1997 when .coms were plentiful and the rules were changing daily. He immersed himself in the technology of websites and servers, databases, and programming languages. In 2001, Sean moved into his current role as CEO of Treefrog Inc. Sean is an active speaker and regularly speaks to groups about various subjects relating to the internet technologies. Drawing on his diverse background, technical knowledge, and creativity, Sean puts practical tips and ideas forward to help people learn how to grow their business. Thanks again, Sean, and good luck with your presentation.
Not at all. Thank you very much, Alex. Much appreciated. And welcome, guys. Well, to the few who are here, I really appreciate that you're going to give me half an hour of time today. I've got a few hours worth of great material to share with you all in a very short period of time. So, I'll give a few more minutes as people come in to just talk about myself, talk about Treefrog a little bit. But I've spoken here before, and I always have a lot of fun. I got to say that TorontoJobs.ca just does such a fantastic job of putting on a smooth conference. I do a lot of speaking a couple of times a week in general, and usually there's a lot of stress and bumping and falling over. In this case, it's just really smooth. I really appreciate that. So please come back to more events like this. It's great to have a great place to talk about ideas. So let me just move right ahead because I've got so much information. Just so you guys know, I actually am, as I mentioned in Dr. Weiss's presentation, I am from Newmarket, which is, if you're ever in Newmarket, we are just north of Toronto. Drive up the 404 until you hit Newmarket, go down the main drag, and you'll know the hospital in the background. We're right beside the hospital. We took over the Ford dealership beside the hospital. We like to say that we moved out of the basement into a garage. We're very proud of that. We are a digital transformation company. I want to spend just 2 or 3 minutes validating that we do actually have some reason to be able to talk about branding and talk about lead generation, because actually branding is part of a digital transformation process. And we do all sorts of things surrounding digital transformation. So what is digital transformation? Because that's sort of an umbrella that everybody uses differently. I think it's always very funny. The way I see digital transformation, instead of reading those things, I'm just going to... Digital transformation is about changing the customer experience to make it more digital, to leverage digital technologies to make it a better experience for people. It's about identifying competitive advantages to make yourself better, or give yourself more abilities than your competitors have. It's about advanced capabilities, so pushing the boundaries, using really edgy technologies to do things that you couldn't even imagine a few years ago. And it's about really strengthening your infrastructure. So making sure you have the right stuff behind you so that when you grow, you can scale and you don't fall over. So we actually at Treefrog have a very clean, straightforward digital transformation roadmap. Let me explain what that roadmap is. So this comes from the theory. It's not my theory. I wish it was. It's genius theory, but a whole bunch of different people have written articles, everywhere from Harvard Business Review to, the Ontario government has released articles around this natural cadence, this natural sort of step from one size of business to the next. So when you first start a business, you're a proto-founder, you got a couple of great ideas, and then you start hiring people and the culture changes and the systems have to change, and you have to hire managers or get people to sort of do things to manage other people, and eventually you grow. And when you're an enterprise organization, the difference between the entrepreneur and the involvement of the entrepreneur, the difference in supervision, the difference of culture, as that changes, different things happen. The fact is, every time you go through one of those big jumps from growth in business, and I'll note, there's a great theory called the Dunbar numbers, which is the first growth is your first employee, the second growth is your 12th employee, the third growth is your 48th employee. That's one way to look at it. Obviously, there's lots of ways to look at that box. But when you do that, when you grow through those glass ceilings, everyone sort of grows through, and some of the things that you do as an organization, you're really strong at, you've got strengths in, and others you've got weaknesses in. And often from a digital transformation standpoint, the real trick is trying to figure out what are the activities that I need to do. Where are the weaknesses and where are the issues that we can work on so that we can improve our business the most for the least amount of money. And that's kind of what Treefrog is all about. It's identifying where are the inconsistent areas, figuring out untangling all the snakes, and then lining up all the snakes so we can get a business growing again. And we can break through those glass ceilings and keep moving. And in fact, there's a logic behind this. So just quickly, the idea is start at the top. You start with marketing. You start with the core stuff. Then you move into integration, go into efficiency, and then you go and do disruptive innovation. So focus on brand, focus on website, focus on marketing strategy. Then focus on reducing customer effort, on modernizing systems, technological infrastructure. Then get into cool stuff like IoT and other things. So that's it. When a company comes to us and says, look, we want to grow, we want to break through some ceilings, we go, okay, well, let's go back to the beginning. Look, I know you want to play with artificial intelligence, and Treefrog does artificial intelligence and loves to do that. That's kind of my thing. I love to do those edgy projects. But that's not going to help your company grow. That's not going to help your company break through. Let's go back to the beginning and make sure the top line revenue is coming in, make sure that you're profitable. Then let's get into efficiencies and making sure that you can get as much, squeeze as much out of the lemon or the orange as you can. But then let's go talk about how we can grow, what we can do differently, where we're gonna break boundaries. And every time you go through that glass ceiling process, you got to go back to the beginning and go, does our brand align with our clients? Does our website have the right message? Are we attacking messaging correctly? Have we integrated every system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So it's not like you do it once and you're done for the rest of your organization's life. You actually have to go through that natural cadence. And so not only is there a cadence from the top to bottom, there's also a cadence from left to right. And what I mean by that is I start with the idea that I've got the first thing that, and all that really matters at the beginning is getting the customer experience right. I've got to make sure that I'm connecting properly with the customer. If I'm not connecting with the customer, it doesn't matter if I can do artificial intelligence. Nobody cares. You've got to make people care first. You've got to connect with their memory. And then once I've done that, then I can go find a bunch of competitive advantages. I can go figure out stuff and do stuff that nobody else has thought of. Once I've done that, then I can start pushing the boundaries and stabilizing things. So you kind of got to do, if you have a dollar, the best place to do it, for example, is don't put money into digital marketing if your website sucks. Don't put money into your website if your branding sucks. Not even if it sucks. If you haven't matured it, if it's not where it needs to be in order to be at that next level. And so we've actually gone through and gone, okay, how can we make a process for growing through these different phases? And we've codified this, we've operationalized every one of these unoperationalizable things to make sure that that process means something to every business. And we can go through that process meaningfully to help people break through those boundaries. You know, when you're first starting your proto entrepreneur, don't go spend a whole lot of money on, you know, large, huge brand things. Just get something off 99 Designs or Staples and keep moving. But once you start to grow a little bit, you got 12 people, 48 people, you need to professionalize that aesthetic to make sure that everybody understands your brand and what it looks like. And now go spend a lot more time on artifacts and other stuff. Then we can get into brand strategies and registering trademarks and doing all that other stuff, or pulling all the crazy trademarks and all the stuff that are all over a large enterprise organization and pull all of those back and clean them up and make sure everybody's communicating in the same way. So it's the same thing when you're picking technology, is picking the right technology to underpin what we're doing. You know, it's not about what technology, it's about where you are in business growth. If you're, you know, just getting started, you do not install Drupal and have complex, you know, just makes things very complex. But if you're a billion-dollar organization, as we've done websites for in the last few years, it makes a lot of sense to have control over all the information, who's saying what, when, and how, and make sure everything's broken into little chunks. So the right technology at the right time. It's also the same when we're talking about infrastructure. So infrastructure matters. Does it matter if your website's offline for a couple of days and you're just getting started? Not really. But does it matter that your website's offline if it's generating millions of dollars in revenue? Yes, it does. So you've got to align what infrastructure you have with where you are in growth. So that's sort of Treefrog that validates why it is and how these fit together. But the most important part, and what this presentation is actually about, is the first step in digital transformation, which is making sure that you have a great and strong brand to drive you through that ceiling and keep growing your business. So what is brand? Brand, most people think of brand, they hear the word logo in the back of their head, but that is not what brand is. So here, let me just challenge that right away. Brand is the idea of connecting your business to people's memory. And in fact, why that's so important is that people, and this is a common idea you've probably heard, people absorb information, they remember things, they want to work with people who they know, like, and trust. People do business with people that they know, like, and trust. They've got to know you, meaning they have to know you exist, they have to be able to find you. They've got to like you, they've got to align with your values, align with who you are. And then they've got to trust you. They've got to believe. They've got to believe that whatever it is that you're selling them will in fact work for them, whether that's a product or service or whatever that is. And that is what all of business is about, credibility. And all of credibility, all of sales, all of growth is about reduction of risk. If I can somehow reduce the risk of my next purchase from you, if you can reduce the relationship with your potential customer, existing customer, if they know that the risk is low, they will buy from you versus somebody else. Now, this reduction of risk is about trust. And trust comes from slowly building memories with people so that they constantly improve their trust with you. Their belief that you are the least risky option to buy from goes up. And that's what branding is actually reduction of risk and reminder of how things work. Now, if you don't believe me, I have this scientific evidence to show you. So everybody out there, I guarantee you the people who are watching this right now, that at least one of you strongly believes that you can genuinely taste the difference between tap water and bottled water. Now, the irony here is that there's lots of evidence that shows that not only can nobody actually taste the difference, but in fact, often the bottled water is directly from the tap. So instead of spending $116 a month for Dasani, you could go buy a water bottle for a couple of bucks and just use tap water. And what's funny is that water is actually more expensive per liter or per gallon than gas or than milk or than bleach, than anything else. However, there's lots of money being made off, but there's evidence that shows, despite $113 billion a year being spent on water bottles, people believe that they can somehow taste the difference between waters. You can't. In fact, we have a preference. When somebody comes to us in a restaurant and says, would you like Evian, Voss, or Pontrex, or Dasani, or you walk into a 7-Eleven, or you walk into a Max, you have to choose. You have to choose which water you're going to get. Now, anybody who actually knows this scientific evidence knows that you're choosing the brand. You're simply choosing the emotion that you previously had. Either you trust because you've had that water before and you know what it tastes like and you know it's good, even though it's the same, or it's so slightly different or imperceptibly different you can't tell. Or you had a great experience in the back where you're at this great restaurant and this reminds you of something. And those reminders become feelings, they become emotions, they connect, and that's what drives water sales. So if I'm going to pay extra for water, that's the fundamental thing behind branding. In fact, what brand is it gives your company an identity. It makes you different. It makes you memorable. It connects people with that experience, as I was talking about. And in addition, it connects your whole team. So from an attraction and retention standpoint, it gives your team pride. And I don't know, the number one thing when you go to sell a business, for example, as we're talking about selling businesses, is brand. The number of times, in fact, the greatest issue with Treefrog, with many of our clients, is that we keep on rebranding companies and they get bought and we lose them as a client by large organizations that have other branding companies already working with them. That's a major problem for us, genuinely, because once you've got a little bit of that curb appeal and everybody starts getting some buzz created and people start believing and sales start going up, it's amazing that as soon as you sort of rethink yourself and align yourself properly in brand, leads, clients, attraction of employees, it all starts to sort of gel. In fact, what most businesses have is they've got their product or service and then they've got their target audience and they've kind of, there's a connection between those. And that's sort of where the brand is. But if you could really understand exactly who you are and exactly who your target audience was, and you matched those perfectly, that every time you said something, every time you had a message coming out of your business, it would increase trust and thus reduce risk and thus increase leads. Everybody get that idea? So the stronger your brand is, it's not about having a better logo. It's about having a more on point message, on point understanding with exactly what your product or service, what the potential clients you want are looking for, commensurate with your values and who you want to be as an organization. And the fact is, additionally to this, if you don't stand out, if you're just like everybody else, Now, I love the brand value of, say, integrity. There are values, there are ideas, and they are table stakes. No one goes lack of integrity as a business value. You just got to kind of assume that people are going to have that. So what's different about you? Is it great customer service? Is it that you have you're expected to be innovative whenever you have a discussion? Is it you're going to be the best price? What is the thing that makes you different? And what's funny is once I trust you, even if I have kind of a bad experience, but the experience is consistent, as long as I have that consistent experience, that reduces risk. And thus, I can have a brand that consists of lousy ideas, but I'll still actually drive leads, I'll drive opportunities because I've reduced risk for people. So you identify what are the things that people really matter about, what do they really care about, what really matters. And that's what will drive those leads, those opportunities. Now, I'm back to this idea. Brand is not just a symbol. It's not your logo. It's everything. It's the name of your business, the name of your products, the slogans you use, the way you speak and behave, blah, blah, blah. You guys see the list, and if you want to copy this presentation, you're happy to have it. There's a ton of different things that make up your brand. And your brand strategy is either intentional or unintentional. Lack of a brand strategy is a brand strategy. Intentional brand strategy will get you there faster. So the question now is, of course, does the brand attract you leads, or does it actually get in the way of leads by increasing risk because people don't believe you? How's it going to affect culture? How's it going to affect sales? Blah, blah, blah. You should be thinking about this. My favorite story is somebody told me about this, say, 20 years ago when I was first in business, is consider walking up to your building, which is kind of relevant these days because nobody's in their building. Very few of us are. Walk up to your building and stand at the edge of your building and go, what do I feel about this building? What's the experience that I have when I'm walking up to this? People have the same experience whether they're approaching on Facebook or approaching on a website or approaching in some digital way. They're just approaching it and seeing something and feeling something. They get a general sense of that. What's the dissonance that you're causing when they go see your digital assets as opposed to your physical assets? So the first thing in this is what we call brand character, and brand character is about trying to figure out what are the values, what's at the bottom of everything that matters to you. And really what we try to do in branding at the beginning of this digital transformation process is try to make it so that we understand who you are, like, not in your soul, but in your organization's soul. What's different about you guys versus everybody else? You know, something that I love is I love the example of Coca-Cola. So everybody that saw this picture instantly knew, that what this was. This is a very small piece of a Coke bottle. You can instantly go, okay, I get it. And this is what Martin Lindstrom in his book, Smashable Brand, the idea here is that, you know, Coke figured out that they could take any piece of their brand, any piece of a bottle, and you'd instantly have a positive emotion with this. Now, if Coke was to suddenly go bankrupt, I would feel like emotionally distraught over that as an idea. Even though I personally haven't put Coke in my mouth for years because of, you know, it's not really great for your teeth, it's not really great for your body. It's not that I don't like the taste, I do, I just don't drink it, but I'm emotionally connected and I believe them so much in their brand. And I can just recognize and feel good by a little tiny thing. And I also have a consistent experience with a Coke no matter where I am in the world. Yes, Mexican Coke is better than Canadian Coke and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it's all similar experience and I understand it. So I can be in the depths of Africa, and I have been, and I will trust that I can open that Coke bottle, drink it, and not and have a positive experience. The other thing about this is that if I go to, say, my website and I take any part out, so for example, my website is, if I've got a template website and I throw my logo on top and I'm expecting it to attract and create this trust, it's not going to work. If I could go to your website today and it fails what we call the logo test, which is if you took your logo off of it and put somebody else's logo on, your competitors or just a shoe company's store, would you actually be able to tell the difference? And that's part of our job as branding people, is trying to figure out exactly when and how we can make sure that you don't fail these tests, that when people are with you, they get this experience. You're constantly creating this improvement in people's experience so that they can keep growing. So I also would not be someone who says, look, let's go build a brand from scratch, because you can also mature a brand, meaning you take the brand and keep moving it and keep growing it in a given direction. And as you grow through, as you go, and if you're starting off at the very beginning and want a brand, that's great. You may need to rebrand because your brand no longer aligns with your current clientele and products. If it doesn't quite align, but it's just off, then you rethink it, and then all of your past people, all people you've worked with in the past, they will actually see the maturation. They will see that you're growing, and they will be reinvigorated to work with you all over again. And in fact, this process of going through and sort of growing, it's a natural process that if you go through a meaningful process to figure these things out, you will naturally grow. Leads will come your way from existing clients and from future clients. And these key components, so let's talk about all these key components that we need to create in order to increase this emotional connection with your clients. Now, the first step we call brand positioning. This is actually a strategic thing. It's not, there's no prettiness, there's no colors in this. It's just figuring out who you are on paper. The first thing is to figure out if you are a human being or if you are, a thing. It's because we as humans connect emotionally with other humans so easily. What makes you different than everybody else? We can actually describe you as if you were a human. And then if we can do that, we can differentiate you from all of your competitors who are also humans. For example, when we think of Google, we think of Google as being, a young, hip, cool company, even though, they're 40 years old almost. I mean, they've been around for a while, not 40, but a while old. And yet IBM, we think of as sort of 65, 70-year-old people, that kind of idea. But we have a character, a thing about us, whether it's true or not. There's the values, there's the things that make us different than everybody else. And we've got to own those across the organization so that when people come to us, they have a consistent experience and everybody understands that. We've got to understand, we have to position ourselves as being different than everybody else. What's that positioning? What makes us different and how do we stand on that? And we've got to figure out, why would people believe us? So the classic thing is we always say things like, oh, you should believe us because we have 95% on-time delivery. But why does that matter to anybody? Well, functionally, I get the order when I expect it, so that's a good thing. But emotionally, I actually am happy. I feel good about the fact that things will that it's gonna be there. So I'm now attaching that emotion to the brand. So now, if I know that that's the emotion that I'm creating, then you can use branding to drive your marketing. You can now document that you have on-time delivery, and then you can put stats on your website, stats on your literature, stats in your emails. When your sales team is talking to people, they can talk about those emotional connections. So we've got to get to the bottom of, why do people emotionally connect with your brand, and then use that like swords to go attack and make sales, and grow. So now that we know who you are, now we've got to figure out who the client is. And this is that branding is not just about who we are as an organization. It's also about who are we going to go talk to. And here's the thing: is there's all these different people in the world. We know this, but all different people react to different stimuli. Some people are on Facebook. Some people like greeting cards, whatever those things are. What there is not is one giant lever that I pull and opportunities drop out the bottom. That just doesn't happen. So instead, I've got to go through the milieu of different levers that I can pull, and I got to, in many cases, pull them in the right order. And nobody has billions of dollars. If you had billions of dollars to market something meaningless, you could just drop things out of a plane, or you could send somebody to every single person's house 25 times a day. There's also, you don't have that. So we've got to figure out, what are the highest and best value actionable activities? What are the levers that I can pull that will get my audience to the desired result? And so we've got to figure out, what are those things that we can pull in what order with the least expense. And the first step is to actually start grouping the people together that you're trying to communicate with. A lot of this is to say, we actually don't want these, we want those. These are the kinds of clients that we want to go after. And then what you can do is you can ask, okay, do they have the money? Sure, I think I want those people, but do they actually have the money to spend, whether it's just extra money or whether it's genuinely their budget? Then, what does their daily life look like? Then we got to ask, how do they communicate? Where are their watering holes? Where are they talking to other people? Where are they getting their information? Once you can figure that stuff out, then we figure out what your ideal client is. We call this a persona. Now we know who you are, and now we know who we're trying to go after. Now we actually know how we're going to message things. Not only that, but we can do what's called a journey map, which we can do something. We can start at the beginning and say, here is how people are going to interact with our company, at the beginning all the way through to the end. Once I know what that map looks like, then I can tell you where we can market, how we can improve that trust all the way along that process so as to increase the likelihood that they're going to make a call to us. We can also, and this is really important from a branding perspective, and everybody misses this, is we can figure out what our visual voice is. How are we going to communicate? What emotions are we going to go after? Now, I show you in front of you here, you see 3 different visual voices as possibilities for the same company. How are you going to communicate? Is your communication going to be about empowerment? Is it going to be about safeguarding? Or is it going to be about protection? And now, whenever I can communicate consistently by consciously choosing imagery, consciously choosing messages, constantly using an entire, not just visual, but actual voice to communicate that will most attract my client, most attract people to what they're looking for. Then we come down to the logo. So obviously we talked about this. This is not what branding is, but there is these artifacts. So you'll see artifacts. I have green hair. Obviously that's connected to Treefrog. I wear a green tie. Obviously that's connected to Treefrog. I have a green mug. Obviously that's connected to Treefrog. I also have a logo, an icon. Now, we as human beings are capable of remembering huge amounts of information, but only in very specific pockets. Every single person at this, can look at this slide and realize or recognize every single one of these logos, probably off the top without thinking, even if their name is not attached. So a great logo is something that I can quickly recognize, that I could quickly sketch out in, say, the sand, or I could carve in a potato, and that makes it easy for a human being to remember, like remembering a song. This is not a memorable logo. Not only that, but you can't embroider it, you can't use it. This is not a friendly to digital. So there's also a modernization process you need to go through to make sure that your symbol and all the artifacts that you're creating will actually work. And you have to go through this rigorous process to create symbology for your organization so people will remember and connect these to trust. And listen, we've done a lot of this work, and I can tell you, it's very rewarding once we get a great new brand, because it will drive an organization a long way. And I come back to, this does not mean throwing out everything you've done and starting again. It's about maturation. And if you look at any of the major organizations in the world, none of them have kept their brand the same. They've slowly changed it over the course of history. And history can be 5 years, it can be 50 years, to gradually make it and modernize it according to the way people think, according to the way people are feeling. And every company, including ourselves, does that. I'll give you an example of one that we did, working with a glorious organization called Mr. Transmission. And you probably remember, if you've been around for a while, the sideways Stanley Cup that gradually sort of matured and became a little bit more modern, but it doesn't represent anything anymore. So we sort of took the fonts, cleaned it all up a little bit, and figured out what would make people take it away from, we're going to do old 60s cars, and move it towards transmission and technology experts. And this logo and this feel and these aesthetics, we crystallized so across all the organization, it all works the same. Once you've got that, we also need to make sure we have strong things in place, just nailing some stakes in the ground so all of our people, all of our employees, all of our team members all know how to use the brand, how to communicate, what's offside, what's onside. We put posters up around your organization. We give you access to everything online, and we teach people how and why we're communicating that way, so that when we go to market, those leads instantly understand who we are, what makes us different, instant sense of trust, and they'll move forward with us. The bottom line here is that branding is not a logo. A great logo, best logo design in the whole world, all by itself, is completely useless. Branding drives leads through this trust idea. And a strong brand, a really well thought out, who are we, and who is our client, and how do those fit together, and how are we going to use that to communicate, will obviously drive your business. And when we're talking about growing business, it's the fundamentally first and easiest thing that you can do to drive your organization's growth. I've got 30 seconds left, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who came today and listened to me today. We have tons more information. I would love to, so if you have anything you want to hear from me in terms of all that digital transformation stuff, please reach out to TorontoJobs.ca. I would love to speak here again. If you want 30 minutes just to talk over your business with me, happy to do that for free with you. And also, we've got some great marketing materials. If you're interested in understanding what a roadmap for 2021 might look like for your marketing, please reach out, and we would happily share that with you. Taylor, who actually organized this event, would happily share with you all sorts of different interesting things. And if not, please reach out to me through LinkedIn. Sean Stevens on LinkedIn. I will respond to you immediately. So thank you. Much appreciated. Really appreciate your time. And I look forward to seeing you guys at the next TorontoJobs.ca Virtual Presidents Conference. Incidentally, Canadian Virtual Presidents Conference. Aren't we all virtual presidents these days? Like, we're all, everything's Zoom, right? So we're all sort of virtual, or is it just that it's virtual? So it's a virtual presidents, or is it virtual presidents? Alex, maybe you can answer that for me.
Honestly, I can't tell either. I mean, it's kind of, all over the place. But I just wanted to say thanks. It was a really great presentation. I'm glad to have you back at this event. It's always great to have you. I know you mentioned that people can contact us for getting in touch with you as well. I'm just going to throw your LinkedIn up in the chat if you don't mind, just in case anyone wants to get in touch there. 1 second. And just to let everyone know, sorry for the looking away from the camera. 1 second. Okay, yeah, so your LinkedIn, sorry, that is, not the story one. Yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to say thanks again for speaking, and just to let everyone know, so our panels on the main stage actually starts in about 4 minutes, so that's going to be 3:30 on the main stage. And your LinkedIn is there as well. If people want to get in touch with you directly, should they just go through email or through LinkedIn or through your website?
Yeah, anyone works.
Okay, great.
I'll fire my email address in here as well.
Awesome.
Anybody wants to reach out via email, please do. Look forward to speaking with you.
Awesome. And just to let everyone else know as well, there is a recording available of the presentation. So Sean, if you would like a copy, just let me know. I can certainly send that over. And if anyone else watching would like a copy, let me or Sean know, and we can provide that to you.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Alex.
No problem. Thanks again.
Have a good day. Bye.
You too.